So I believe you've mentioned a few times that you don't think belief is a useful category for thinking about human thought. So maybe I'll just let you expound on that, and then we can go from there.
Yeah, I don't think it's a useful category for most kinds of thought. It can be useful when speaking about, for example, religious faith. And you say, you can ask a religious person, do you believe in this tenet or that tenet of your faith, of your denomination, and so on. And that person is likely to go to their spiritual advisor sometimes when they're perplexed, and they might ask questions like, what do we believe about so-and-so? And then the spiritual advisor may say, well, we think that this is wrong, but that is right. And then they will say, thank you. And then they'll go away, and then they will believe it in some sense. Now, I don't deny that sense of belief exists. At the other end of the scale, you can ask somebody, does the number 8 bus still stop at this bus stop? And they might say, well, I believe it does. But, and their tone of voice will tell you that if it doesn't, then it's not their fault. Their belief means the opposite of what it did in the first example. And then in between, when we're talking about how we use theories, how we use ideas, I think belief is nothing but a misleading category. For example, and Bayesians may know about this example. In everyday parlance, beliefs have strengths. So you can say, I believe that, but not very strongly. But if you give me this evidence, I'll believe it more strongly, or I'll believe it less strongly, and so on. And that sort of says that that somehow ideas are we know that ideas are somehow encoded in our brains, and the idea there is that with every idea there is well, for Bayesians there is a number between 0 and 1, which tells them the strength of that idea. And when they consult the idea, like, is the number 8 bus coming, they also consult that number. And if that number is 0.99, then they will say, yes, it does stop at this stop, and so on, and so on. Now, I don't think those numbers exist. And in the so you might say, well, they don't exist in the sense of being recorded in a memory location next to where the idea is recorded, but it's just a convenient way of speaking about the whole gestalt, or whatever you call it, of the mind in regard to that idea. But that's not true either. I don't think we consult this gestalt at all. And what's more, in the case of the bus, the person you're asking may not even have a location in their brain where the number 8 bus timetable is stored. They may create it on the fly after being asked. And they take into account all sorts of other things that they consult more often, or where they have no criticism. If they can link the bus question to one where they have no criticism, where they can think of no criticism, then they will just say yes or no to the bus question, and and note that they are then talking about the bus, entirely talking about the bus and its timetable, not at all about their own brain, which is what I believe, or what Bayesians think. That not just Bayesians, I mean, it is the prevailing theory of knowledge and of how the mind works, that beliefs come in strengths.
Okay, so maybe let me try and make the case for not like a quantitative version of degrees of belief, which I think we all want to disavow, where you actually attach numbers to these things and then do arithmetic and calculus with these numbers, but maybe a softer form of degrees of belief. So on a different podcast you were on, Dwarkesh Patel asked you, he wanted to advance some theory based on our current theories of cosmology. and you weren't prepared to adopt the conclusion of the theories because you said something like, at this point, our theories of cosmology are changing quite rapidly on the something like once per decade almost. They're being revolutionized. Mm-hmm. Could you not frame that in terms of you're not prepared to adopt a conclusion because your degree of belief, you don't have to attach a number to it, but like you just have less confidence in our theories of cosmology, in our current theory of cosmology, even though it's might be our best explanation of cosmology at the moment. You're just less confident.
Yeah. So if you strip the idea of belief of all its common sense implications about how one makes decisions, then you can retrospectively frame any decision in terms of belief. You can say I made this or that bet on the roulette wheel because I believed so and so about the roulette wheel. But right. And that in one sense it's harmless because you're simply, because it can be attached to any kind of thinking, it doesn't add or subtract anything from the thinking. But the trouble is that the theory of belief is a substantive one. It's a claim about how the mind works, and it's a false claim about how the mind works. Therefore, sometimes it will lead you into error, and there are well-known paradoxes to do with belief, like the paradox of the intransitivity of support. Hempel's paradox. So Hempel's paradox is that if a theory is true, then you can deduce from that all its implications are true. If a theory is false, there's nothing you can deduce about the implications. Mm-hmm. So inductivism or Bayesianism or various theories of quantified belief say, okay, well, that's a bit of an awkward problem. What happens because in real life you don't ever know for sure that the theory is true. So suppose you only believe that it's true. Suppose you believe that it's true very strongly. Can you then rely on its implications being true? Like its predictions, for example. If you believe the theory is true, can you rely on its predictions? Well, it turns out, as a matter of logic, that there are, if the theory is so, given a quantification of belief, if a theory has less than 100% belief in your mind, then there are always implications of it which will be rendered less believable by more evidence for the theory. And that's Popper and Miller's theorem, one way of putting Popper and Miller's theorem.